Mr. Secretary General, I'm very happy to see you. As one of the countries founding members of the United Nations and permanent member of the UN Security Council, Russia has always supported this universal organization, and we believe that it is not just a universal organization, but a unique organization in its way. There is no other organization such as this in the international community, and we support in all ways the principles it's based on, and will continue to do that. To us, it sounds very strange, the statements of some of our colleagues when they talk about the rule-based world. We believe that the main rules are the UN Charter and other documents adopted by this organization, and not some papers written by somebody to reflect their interests. We were also surprised when we heard some of our colleagues' statements that some in the world claim some exclusive rights, because the UN Charter says that all the participants in the international communications are equal, irrespective of their might and size and their geographical situation. I think that this is the same as what is written in our Bible. All people are equal. This is we will probably find the same in the Quran and Torah. All people are equal under God. That's why it sounds very strange, those ideas that some pretend or claim some exclusivity. We are living in a difficult world, in a complicated world. That's why we see we have what we have. We are working with everybody. And of course, the United Nations was created at the time following a crisis. It's gone through different periods in its development. And just several years ago, we heard that it's outdated, that it's not necessary. It happened at the time when it was in somebody's way. It stood in the way of some countries who wanted to achieve some place on the world arena. So we've heard there are no other organizations like the UN, and we have to value it because it was created after the Second World War to solve such conflicts. So we know that you're concerned on the subject of Russia conducting a military operation in Donbass and Ukraine. I think that this will be at the basis of our conversation today. In this connection, I wanted to note that the whole problem emerged after the coup in 2014. This is an obvious fact. You can call it anything you want, and you can call any preferences or opinions about people who were involved, but that was an anti-constitutional putsch. And after that, the situation emerged with the will of the residents of Crimea and Sevastopol, who acted effectively in the same way as people who lived and who live in Kosovo did. They decided to become independent, and then they approached us and asked us to join the Russian Federation. The only difference was that in Kosovo, such a decision on sovereignty was adopted by the parliament. But in Crimea and Sevastopol, it was taken on a national referendum. The same problem was in the east of Ukraine, where the residents of two territories, at least two territories, the constituent parts of Ukraine, didn't agree with the results of the coup d'etat. But they found themselves under pressure, including through the use of military force, including warplanes and heavy military equipment. This is how the crisis in Donbass began in the southeast of Ukraine. As we know, After another attempt by the Kiev authorities to solve this problem through military means, we signed agreements in Minsk. They were called the Minsk Agreements. That was an attempt to settle the situation through peaceful means in Donbass. Unfortunately for us, in the course of 8 years, the people who lived there were blockaded. The Kiev authorities publicly announced that they would organize a blockade of those territories. They were not embarrassed to say that it was a blockade, even though initially they rejected that they were doing that, and they continued military pressure. In those conditions, after the Kiev authorities effectively, publicly, and I want to stress this, publicly, through their first officials, that they didn't intend to comply with those Minsk agreements. To prevent the genocide of those people, we had to declare those states as independent. It was forced. We had to do that to stop the suffering of people who lived in those territories. But our colleagues in the West preferred to ignore this. And after we recognized their independence, they turned to us with the request to provide military assistance to them, because they were subjected to military aggression. And under Article 51.7 of the United Nations Charter, we had to do this, and we launched a special military operation. I would like to inform you that despite the fact that there is a military operation underway, we still expect and hope that we will be able to achieve agreements through a diplomatic channel. We are conducting negotiations with in Istanbul, at the talks in Istanbul, and you've just been there. I spoke to President Erdogan today, that you managed to achieve a serious breakthrough, because the requirements of international security of Ukraine, our Ukrainian colleagues didn't link them with such concepts as internationally recognized borders of Ukraine. They brought Crimea, Sevastopol, and the newly recognized republics of Donbass, they made certain provisos there. But unfortunately, after the achievement of those agreements and after our clearly demonstrated intentions by us to create favorable conditions to continue the talks, we came across, we faced a provocation in Bucha, to which the Russian army has nothing to do. We know who staged that provocation, how they did it, and what people were involved in that provocation. And the position of our negotiators for further settlement, our negotiators' position changed radically after that. They decided not to move the issues of security guarantees and the Crimea and Sevastopol and Donbass issues outside the agreement. They just rejected that. And in their draft agreement, we pointed that in 2 articles that these issues should be solved at the meeting of the heads of state. Of course, we understand that these issues, if we move them to the level of the heads of states without solving them preliminarily in a draft agreement, we know that they will never be settled like that. And to sign under security guarantees in that case without solving the issues of territorial guarantees with respect to Crimea, Sevastopol and the Donbas republics, we cannot do that. Nevertheless, the talks continue. They're being now held in an online format, and I hope that this will lead us to some positive results. This is what I wanted to say at the beginning. I'm sure we will have many issues in connection with the situation. Maybe we will talk about other issues. I'm very happy to see you. Welcome to Moscow.
Thank you very much. Благодарю вас, господин президент.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for receiving me in the Kremlin. It is true, as the Secretary General, my main concern is the situation in Ukraine. I have a clear understanding that we need a multilateral world order based on the UN Charter and international law. Any rules which will be established must be established with the consensus of the international community, and they should totally reflect the international law. I strongly believe in the international law, in the UN Charter, and this is why we differ in our views on the situation which take place. I understand that the Russian Federation has several claims and complaints about the situation in Ukraine, and also in connection with the European global security. I've held many positions in my life. I remember that I had the possibility to meet you when I worked, when I was the head of the EU and worked for the government of Portugal. We even met in the same room, maybe. I understand your consent, but in our view, this consent must be solved used on various tools suggested by the UN Charter. We strongly believe that the violation of the territorial integrity of any country fully contradicts the UN Charter. And we are deeply concerned in connection with what's happening now. And we believe that there was an invasion into the territory of Ukraine. Nevertheless, I arrived in Moscow with a pragmatic approach. We are deeply concerned about the humanitarian situation in Ukraine. The United Nations is not part of the political negotiations. We've never been invited or allowed to take part in the Minsk process or the Normandy format. The UN was never part of those formats. We are not part of the talks. And I had the opportunity to express this to President Erdogan. We support the dialogue between the two countries, and we support Turkey's goodwill in promoting this approach. But our main task is with regard to the humanitarian situation in Ukraine, and we want to improve it. This is exactly why I held a meeting today with Minister Sergei Lavrov. And I presented two proposals. First, to implement our proposal, which we presented at the meeting of with the Ministry of Defense. Our team works with the Ministry of Defense to clarify the situation with regard to humanitarian corridors and humanitarian aid, and that cooperation was fruitful. But to be honest, we come across situations when Ukraine establishes one corridor and Russia establishes another corridor, and the situation is such that those corridors do not work. Therefore, we propose that there should be a humanitarian contact group represented by the UN, Russia and Ukraine will discuss the situation so that these corridors will be truly effective, so that nobody will have an excuse to sabotage those corridors. On the other part, we understand the difficult situation in Mariupol. Again, as for this situation, I would like to say that the United Nations is prepared to fully mobilize its logistical capacities, its human resources, together with the MCK and with the Red Cross, and Mr. Mauer is prepared to support this initiative. We have to work together with the armed forces of Ukraine and Russia so that once and for all this problem will be solved. This will be an initial operation to evacuate civilians from the Azovstal steelworks. Russia is permanently excused that it doesn't conduct this evacuation. On the other hand, Russia has announced the establishment of corridors which are not being used. And we are together with the Red Cross, with the Ukraine and Russia, we are prepared to assess the situation, and within 2-3 days this will allow us to evacuate those who want to be evacuated. Of course, this is a voluntary process. On the other hand, as for Mariupol, many people and a large area of the city has been destroyed. Many people are still there, and they are in a difficult situation. They want to leave the city. Some want to leave for Russia. Others want to leave for the territory controlled by the Ukrainian authorities. And together with the Red Cross, we will use all our resources to work together with the authorities of Russia and Ukraine in order to create this opportunity to guarantee the evacuation of those people. This will be a longer process. We have to establish more concrete forms of cooperation, but we are really interested in this. We pursue only one aim, is to alleviate the situation of those people and to alleviate their suffering. As I already said, this is the opportunity to unite our agencies and the Red Cross, and to do this process totally transparent, so that nobody will accuse the other party that something is not taken in. Sorry. I am really well aware of all the documents of the International Court of the UN on the situation in Kosovo. I remember very well the decision of the International Court, which says that when implementing the right to self-determination, this or that territory of any country does not have to ask for permission to declare their sovereignty to the central authorities of that country. That was written in relation to Kosovo, and that was the decision of the International Court. And that decision was supported by everybody. I personally read all the comments from the legal and administrative and political bodies of the United States and the European countries. Everybody supported that. If this is so, then the republics of Donbass, the Donetsk People's Republics and the Lugansk People's Republic have the same rights without applying to the central authorities in Kiev to declare their sovereignty, because the president exists. Is this so? Do you agree with this?
First of all,
Mr. President, the United Nations doesn't recognize Kosovo. But the court recognized this. Let me finish. The court recognized it. If this precedent has been created, then the republics of Donbass could have done the same way. Having done this, and then on our part, we got the right to recognize them as independent states. Many states in the world have done that, including our opponents in relation to Kosovo. Many countries in the world have recognized Kosovo. This is a fact. Many states, many Western states have recognized it as an independent state. We've done the same with the relation to the republics of Donbass. But after we did that, they applied to us with a request to provide military help to them against the country which was conducting military operations against them. We were entitled to do this under Article 51.7 of the UN Charter. We will discuss about this later. I want to comment on the second part of your statement about Mariupol. The situation is complicated there and tragic. But it's simple, really. I've spoken to President Erdogan today. He said that military operations were taking place there. No, the military operations have ended there. There are no military operations in Mariupol. They've stopped. Parts of the armed forces of Ukraine, which were deployed in other industrial areas, they have surrendered. Almost 1,300 people surrendered. They were taken prisoners, but there were even more. There are some wounded there. They are kept in normal conditions. Wounded persons are receiving qualified medical assistance by our doctors. If the Azovstal steel works are completely sealed, is completely sealed off, I ordered not to assault it. There are no direct military operations there. Yes, we hear from the Ukrainian authorities that there are civilians there. In that case, the servicemen of the Ukrainian army must release them, or they are acting as terrorists in many countries, as the ISIS in Syria. They are hiding behind civilians. The easiest thing to do is to release them. You're talking about the Russian humanitarian corridors, that they're not working. No, they lied to you. They're working with our assistance. More than 100,000 people left Mariupol. 130 or 140,000 people left Mariupol, and they're free to go anywhere. Some people want to go to Russia, some to Ukraine, anywhere. We don't hold them back, and we provide all possible support and assistance to them. Civilians can also do the same if they're there at the Azovstal works. They can just leave. An example of civilized attitude to those people is obvious. Everybody can see that. Just talk to those people who left. What would be easier for the troops there, or for the representatives of the nationalist battalion? Just just release those people. It's a crime to hold the people as a human shield if they're there. We're in touch with them, with those who is holed up there in the basements of the Azovstal works. They also have good examples. Their comrades in arms have left and laid down their arms. More than 1,000 people, 1,300 actually, and nothing has happened to them. If you want to see, esteemed Secretary General and the representatives of the Red Cross and the United Nations, how they're being kept and where, and how medical assistance is being provided to the wounded, we can help you. This is the easiest solution of this difficult or seemingly difficult issue. Let's discuss this.